Hello, year 3. We are now on chapter 8 of the Accidental Prime Minister. Yesterday was chapter 7, and it was the beginning of Joe's time as Prime Minister. I think he's in a bit of shock, but I think he's getting into it. So we're going to go for chapter 8. This chapter is called Our House. Hello, Romy, if you're joining us. We joined earlier for Key Stage 1 story time, and there was no one here, so I didn't do it today. But this is Key Stage 2 story time, but everyone is welcome. So, chapter 8, Our House. Welcome to your new house. Oh, this feels like deja vu. I read this by accident yesterday, in case people didn't know. Jenkins said drearily, handing Joe a mobile phone. Every PM gets a prime ministerial phone. It has all the latest technology, camera and recording facilities. This house is the beating heart of Britain. Every decision about the country for the last few hundred years all comes from here. There was a hum to the place, the sound of people talking and tapping of fingers on keyboards. It felt busy, as though behind every corner there was something hugely important and secretive going on. The whole place had a strange, not feel exactly, more like smell. It lingered in the nose and stuck to the back of the throat. What was it? Joe sniffed loudly. What is that smell? He asked. Don't look at me, AJ said innocently. For once, it wasn't AJ. It was something else. Joe shook his head, puzzled, and carried on following Jenkins. Look, they've got a downstairs lab, Joe's mum said, rather too loudly for Joe's liking. Actually, we have 38, Jenkins said. Blimey, told you it'd be posh, said Mum. Joe stopped in his tracks, in awe of the sight before him. They were standing at the foot of a giant staircase, which twisted up to the top of the house. There were photographs all the way up the wall. Joe liked how they started in black and white and moved into colour the higher he looked. There's some of the pictures. Well, that's all the Prime Ministers there's ever been, right? AJ asked, impressed. Will I get my picture put up there too? Joe breathed. But of course, Prime Minister. The first time anyone had actually called him Prime Minister. Joe felt a mixture of excitement and nerves swirl around his belly. And now for the tour, Jenkins had clearly given this speech once or twice before. 10 Downing Street has been the home of the Prime Minister since 1732. It contains roughly 100 rooms, give or take a broom cupboard or two. It was job for Joe, Mum, and AJ to keep up as Jenkins strode down the main corridor, highlighting various points of interest. The rooms were huge, the biggest Joe had ever seen. Suddenly, Joe felt very small indeed. Joe and AJ noticed something else too. People were poking their heads out of the room and round walls to stare at them. I feel like we're in a zoo, AJ whispered. I know. I don't know whether to wave or growl, said Joe. It's him, Joe heard on more than one occasion. Who are all these people? Joe asked Jenkins. These are your staff, Prime Minister, Jenkins replied. They're here to help and advise you. Running a country is a huge undertaking, and one person can't do it on their own. For instance, sir, Jenkins stopped and at the top of his voice barked, What's the value of the American dollar against the pound? From nowhere, a head popped round a door. 1.6018. Oh, can I try? Joe asked eagerly. I don't see why not, Jenkins said warily. How long is a piece of string? Joe yelled at the top of his voice. An average of 1.574 metres long, a voice from upstairs called down. What's the most popular flavour of milkshake? AJ joined in. Strawberry, came the far-off answer, but personally I like chocolate. They're good, aren't they? Joe was astonished. They're the best, Prime Minister, Jenkins answered. Shall we move on? Jenkins pushed open another door to a huge room with a big table in the centre. This is the cabinet room, Jenkins announced. The most important room in the whole house. This is where you'll make all your biggest decisions. Like saving the park, Joe asked. Indeed, Jenkins replied. Joe twitched his nose again. He could still smell that smell. What on earth was it? The house comes complete with 300 members of staff, including butlers and cooks. I don't know what to say. You could fit a roller coaster in there, said Joe, staring out into the garden. I'll take it. Normally, a Prime Minister likes to decorate several rooms in his or her own taste. Would that be of any interest to you, Prime Minister? Jenkins asked. Joe looked at AJ. AJ looked at Joe. Their eyes sparkled with delight. An hour later, Jenkins was standing next to a huge flip chart showing plans of each and every room. His ankles were buried under scrunched up pieces of paper. Sweat rolled down his face. Are we finally agreed? You want a fast food bar, complete with arcade and laser quest in the basement, a jelly room for any, quote, jelly emergencies, end quote, a movie room along with a chocolate ice cellar on standby at all times, a fireman's pole. I can ask about the Shark Tank, but I have a feeling health and safety will say no. You want a room set aside for every new toy that's been invented, and you want me to ask about a theme park in the back garden. And there's Jenkins looking quite hot and bothered. Whoa, Joe's ideas are crazy. Joe and AJ looked at each other and replied together, yes. Leave it with me, Prime Minister. Now, you should really think about going to your office and taking some calls. It's traditional for world leaders to phone you and congratulate you on being Prime Minister. They should be calling any second. How long will that take? Well, there are over 200 of them, so 5 hours should cover it, came a voice from down the corridor, round the corner and up the stairs. 200? 5 hours? I'm sorry, sir. It's the usual. Jenkins replied. I've got a better idea, Joe said in his best plotting voice. Hello, Prime Minister. My name is Jim James the First, President of the United States. Oh, I should do that in an American accent, but I'm not going to try. President of the United States. I'm just ringing to congratulate you on your victory. Hello, Mr. President, sir. I'm afraid the Prime Minister can't come to the phone as he has a spot of maths homework to finish off. This is his mother. Joe gave her a big thumbs up. Oh, well, it's nice to meet you, ma'am, the President replied. What's the weather like where you are? It's a bit parky out today. Parky? The weather's fine here, ma'am. Oh, call me Doreen. Tell me where's some good places to visit in America? I fancy going out there for the 50th. For my 50th next year. I want to go shopping in New York, like on the films. Tell me, do you have M&S over there? Mum put her hand over the receiver, grinned and nodded. It's nice to have a nice sit down and nice chat, isn't it? Only another 167 to go, Joe said. Oh, you better put the kettle on. Joe chuckled and closed the door on his mum. Settling in, Prime Minister. Joe turned round to see Violetta stalking towards him. Towards him, AJ and Jenkins. Joe decided that he was going to be pleasant. Very pleasant indeed. He gave her a warm grin and stretched his hand out. No hard feelings, he said to Violetta. Of course not. I'm sure your time here will be memorable, she said, trying to smile again. In the same way that falling off a cliff or having your arm chewed off by a rat is memorable. Joe withdrew his arm fast. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you think that grown-ups were supposed to be nice to children? How terribly bad of me to disappoint you. The thing is, this isn't a game. This is real. And you'll soon find out that grown-ups don't play fair at all. Joe stared at her. He was determined to keep his composure. We'll see who wins in the end, he said, managing a smile that was almost genuine. That smell, the one that's been bothering you since you walked through the door, that, my boy, is the smell of power, and it belongs to me, so don't get used to it. Violetta turned on her heel and stormed off. Don't worry, Joe, you're PM now. That pretty much means you can do anything you like. You could probably have her exterminated or turned into sausages or something, right, Jenkins? AJ said, winking. Definitely not, Jenkins exclaimed. All right, I get it. Definitely not, AJ said, doing air quotes with his hands and winking and nodding at Jenkins. That's air quotes. Stop winking at me. You can't have anyone killed and turned into sausages. No, I totally get it, man, AJ said, tapping his nose. Will you stop that? Stop what? Winking and tapping your nose. Jenkins pinched the bridge of his nose with his fingers and sighed. It's been a long day. I suggest you retire for the night. Tomorrow is your first cabinet meeting, so I would advise that you get some sleep. I took the liberty of speaking to AJ's mother earlier, and she's happy for him to stay over if it suits the both of you. AJ and Joe looked at each other. Sleep over! They both yelled together and went for a high five. Sadly, Joe missed and caught AJ on the nose. He is so clumsy. And that was the end of chapter 8. And the next chapter is called Chairman of the Board. and it's going to be about him going to his first meeting. I wonder how that goes. Wow, I can't believe that Joe is the Prime Minister. Isn't that crazy? So there you go. That was chapter 8 for you. See you next time for chapter 9. See you later.